Hello, my name is Rhys Morgan.
I'm Robert West.
Together we are Morgan and West, and you are listening to the Successful Mentalist Podcast.
Hello and welcome to the Successful Mentalist Podcast. My name's Ashley Green and I'm joined by... You can't do synchronicity over Zoom. You can't do synchronicity over Zoom. That's a big problem. We're joined by Aidan O'Sullivan. And today it's not just us who's going to be delivering this podcast. Of course, we are with two incredibly awesome chaps known as Morgan and West. Hello and welcome to the TSM Podcast.
Hello.
Hello.
Good morning, afternoon.
No, it's morning.
Is it morning? It's morning.
It's morning.
Morning, afternoon, wherever in the world everyone's listening to. Who knows?
5 o'clock somewhere.
Good day. Yeah. It's 5 o'clock somewhere.
Good day. That sounds much better. We need to intro like that all the time. Good day, everyone. Hello. But you guys have got up to like some incredible things like over the past few years, to be honest. Like you're known
The past few
massively.
years we've got up to not much.
Yeah, the last few years, very little happened.
Yeah, except that like famous year and the little bit after, which is kind of a little bit sketchy for everyone. But before that, you guys are like incredible.
I'd say we've had a pretty good decade.
Yeah.
Pretty good decade. There we go. You've had a pretty good decade, and like you're known so much for your work in coding and also like your incredible theatre shows and so much else. So before we start today's episode, could you guys give us a little bit of a rundown? Say, for example, if no one, not that there's going to be anyone, but imagine there's no one that's ever heard of you before. How would you describe yourself? What is it that you guys do?
I mean, first of all, I'd imagine there are plenty of people
There's
who
plenty of people who haven't heard of us before.
We are, these days, the way we describe ourselves is a two-person theatre company that do a variety of different things, including magic shows, science shows, stupid summer pantos.
Whatever we fancy. We do family-friendly entertainment.
Yeah. We're not end of the pier, but we're definitely wandering towards it these days.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. I think clever nonsense is what we do. We do clever nonsense.
Yeah.
I love that. That's great. It's like the complete opposite of niching. It's just like, yeah, let's just do whatever we want. That's awesome.
You got to do stuff that you want to watch. We firmly believe, because that's the way that you make good stuff. Because if you try and do stuff that other people want to watch, you don't please yourself and you don't please other people.
Yeah,
so you can't please other people, so please yourself.
We've got friends that have been doing the same act for 20, 30 years. And obviously, it's a very good act, but I'd be so bored by that.
Oh, I'd have given up by now.
Like, we always want to be working on the next thing, or working on the thing you're working on, but working on a way of improving the thing you're working on. I don't ever want to get to a stage in my career when we just sort of get up, turn up to a gig, do the same old, get back in the car, be like, right, see you next week.
Yeah.
Like, we don't want to do that. We always want to be talking about new ideas and developing new ideas and learning new skills.
There are better ways to earn money than entertainment careers.
Yeah,
like
that's the thing.
If your motivation is money, go into the
Get
city
better.
and
So
ruin
many
your
better
life for
jobs.
10 years. That's easier.
Like
you'll come out with a decent pension and a bunch of money.
or
and
do something productive for society.
yeah, you
Like
do that.
it's not that the arts doesn't have worth, but the point is that if you're doing it as a daily grind, you've really got to question why you're doing it.
Yeah.
Whereas we do it because we want to do it and because we love doing it, but part of that is the creation and development and working on it and writing stuff and mucking about and going, oh, wouldn't this be good or wouldn't that be good or should we try this?
It's the whole. I mean, just before we came on, we spent the last half an hour looking into can we run lighting desks from our laptops, which will be an entirely new venture for us in having to learn how to program a lighting desk and so on. I mean, Rob did a bunch of it at college years ago and all that, but it's kind of a new bit, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's just
Something
I
to
think and a big part of that. Sorry, you might have noticed that we can talk for a long time of basically no question at all.
Yeah,
but
Hey, we had Colin and Chloe on the podcast, Colin Cloud and Chloe Crawford. I'll be honest, we had an hour-and-a-half interview. We asked one question.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, Colin can talk.
He can talk. Yeah, he's got opinions.
Yeah,
mostly about himself. But yeah, like, and our thing is going, well, there is all our work is based off the fact that there's only two of us and maybe a touring tech with us, and so we want to make the show as big as we can without having to hire anyone else or pay anyone else.
Can't afford to.
We can't afford to. So then it's like, well, all right, can we do more complicated lighting? Well, we can't really get a venue tech to do that because it's too much for them to do. Can we do it ourselves?
Can we turn up with it? Can we turn up with it pre-programmed? But all you've got to do is link the right lights to the right bits, and then actually we're running it ourselves from stage.
Yeah.
Maybe we can.
Maybe we can.
Maybe we can't.
Who knows? We don't know.
Maybe it'll all burst into flames one day.
Yeah.
Who knows?
That's amazing. I love the complexity, actually boiling that down. But you said something there that I'm curious about. Obviously, I want to talk about the life cycle of like an idea or a show in and of itself, because you guys you're constantly creating, constantly developing, constantly iterating on new ideas, rather than doing the same show for 20 years. What would you say is like a typical life cycle for either a show in and of itself? Do you replace an entirely new show? Do you come out with brand new shows each year? What's kind of your angle on
Changed.
In the early days, we would do a whole new show a year, whole hour a year.
And that was, looking back on it, bananas.
But back then, we had
we had nothing,
fewer
didn't we?
gigs.
We had way fewer gigs. We started with nothing, so it was easy to generate those ideas and get stuff together. And we had a much lower threshold for what we thought was stage work.
Oh yeah, we'd put any old crap on stage.
Yeah. We did a series of rewatches of some of our old Edinburgh shows over Christmas 2020.
Yeah, and they're still on YouTube. I think they're still on
yeah,
YouTube. You can watch us watching old shows. And there's a lot. We go. We would never put this on stage now.
And some of it's great. Some of it is really good. But
stuff that we still do.
Some of it we're looking at it going, oh my god.
Yeah, there's some stuff in there we still do, but some of it we go, we'd never do this now.
Yeah.
And
so these days for us, a show has quite a different life cycle and a potential to kind of carry on. So the science show that we're starting touring again in January, that should have toured for all of 2020 and a bit of 2021, getting bits added to it. But obviously things stopped, and then we're sort of restarting it now. With the idea that it'll exist for another year, then it'll go to bed. It might come out in 3 or 4 years again, and if it does, we'll probably change it a bit and move it around a bit. But because we largely perform for family audiences, the life cycle is
like 3 years
and repetitious, because kids grow up and new kids happen.
Yeah, like
so we understand.
If most of the kids in your, not the adults, but most of the kids in your audience are 5 to 8, say, and we get all ages, but I'd say the bulk in the middle of the normal distribution is 5 to 8.
Yeah.
Within 3 years, all the 5-year-olds or 8-year-olds, the 8-year-olds or 11-year-olds, which means that you've completely recycled your audience, and because there's always new parents coming through, you've also completely recycled all the adults in your audience. So yeah, you can repeat a show every 3 years and be absolutely fine with it. For us, like the show we were just touring, which was very much a thrown together in social distancing times kind of show.
It was all of the tricks from our 2 regular family shows that we tour that didn't involve getting people on stage, kind of put together and made to link, and with a really stupid start and finish.
Yeah, and that show probably won't see the light of day again
at all.
But a lot of what goes into that show will probably come back in about 3 years as part of a bigger scale show, because the material's still good, the stuff is still good, the jokes are still good, but we want to build our act all the time. And again, like with the Langer stuff, like with all the other stuff, is going, well, I want to, when we come back in 3 years with this show, if someone did come back and see it, even if they recognize the tricks, I want them to go, wow, this is a lot bigger than it felt last time. And that doesn't necessarily mean we're not going to be doing Grand Illusions, but as in just the physical show itself.
I'd suggest it's likened to the Mario Kart effect, where I want people to come back to Mario Kart 8 and go, oh, I remember Mario Kart Wii. It was exactly like this. This is really good.
Yeah, and then you go back to Mario Kart Wii and go, oh, this looks awful.
Oh, what happened?
Oh my god, the graphics are so bad. And yeah, if they go away with your show with a really fond memory of it, and a kid leaves your show thinking how big and amazing it was, if they come back in 3 years, we don't want them to go, actually, on reflection, it's a bit smaller than I thought it was.
Yeah.
Maybe I was 5. We want them to go, this is bigger than I remember it.
Yeah.
So I suppose the question that comes up for me then is, what is your process of trying to improve the shows and make sure that they're always getting better and improving bit by bit then?
Will we ever... I mean, this is not like a oh yeah, this is our official method, but I like to think that we have a sort of wouldn't it be good rule, which is if someone says wouldn't it be good if, or wouldn't it be funny if, do that. Like, so if you go, oh, wouldn't it be good if at this point I could do blah?
All right, then let's work it out.
Okay, can we do that? And even if it's like there's a couple of points in the kids show we just stopped doing, where Reese goes, I have an idea, because it's an amalgamation of different shows, and we sometimes not reuse lines, but we do reuse lines, but thematic moments crop up several times in bits. There's only 3 plots in Kids Magic, but
there's only 2 plots in our shows.
Yeah. And I was thinking, wouldn't it be good if every time Reese does that, there's a little ding sound?
And so we haven't put it in
We
yet.
haven't put it in yet, but that's like a thing we go, and it's a tiny improvement. It's a minuscule 0.05% improvement, but it is an improvement because it's adding to the production values of the show. And so, like our science show that we were touring pre-pandemic and are now about to go back touring again has projection in it. It has a big screen that we project onto, and we're going, well, okay, when we bring the kids show back, why don't we rebuild the set and we could build picture frames into it, but the picture frames are projection fabric. So you could project onto the back of them, so you have pictures that move and do stuff. And so when Reese goes, I've got an idea, as well as it going, bing,
like I'm stood under a different picture frame every time, and that particular frame turns into
an exclamation mark or a light bulb or whatever appears above Reese's head. Or maybe, if that doesn't work, maybe the picture of Reese on the stage has a light bulb pop above its head. And obviously to do this now, we're talking about rebuilding the set, making video resources, animation possibly. So there's a lot of work that goes into this stuff. But as you start to do these things and go, oh, if we did that, we could also do this. If we added music to this bit, we'd add music to that bit. If we had screens so we could do animation, we could do this with animation and that with animation. And a lot of this stuff isn't magic stuff. It's just production values. And it's just basically chipping away at all the wouldn't it be cool if, wouldn't it be cool if, wouldn't it be cool if, wouldn't it be cool if. And then at the same time, I think paying attention to, as you do your shows, going, what's the worst bit in this show?
Yeah.
And then go, well, okay, if we also fix the worst bit of the show,
something new becomes the worst.
Something new becomes the worst bit, and then you fix that. And I'm not saying that you endlessly replace bits,
but we endlessly replace bits.
And even if it is just going, I don't like that bit where you have to pick up a thing and hand it to me before you can pick up the other thing and do a thing. Wouldn't it be easier if we could reveal these things one by one by replacing the props that cover them? Or the angles on this bit are a bit funny. Wouldn't it be better if we could do this centrally, but then we've got the subtone centrally, but maybe if we did this higher? And it's stuff like that where you're always digging into the flaws and not just going, oh no, and not falling into the trap that magicians do of going, this trick has flaws, so I'll go and buy the newest thing that definitely won't have hidden flaws that I don't know about. It's just going, no, the stuff I've got is good. What I want is to take the stuff that I've got that is good and make it great.
That makes sense. I'm curious as to why on the production value element of it, because this seems to be, as you guys said, it's a huge role, and it's where you spend more of your focus rather than just the magic in and of itself. It's all of the improving the actual production value.
Magic's secondary.
Yeah.
It's.
Have you been to see a musical in the West End?
Yes,
Was there a set?
there was indeed.
Were there costumes?
There were costumes.
Were there dance numbers?
Were there dance numbers?
Oh, there most certainly was.
So they didn't.
Were there bits in between the songs that were still funny or entertaining or smart?
Correct. Yes.
Yeah, so that's why.
Yeah, replace musical with magic, and we're done. It's magic is the baseline. If you go and see a magic show, you are expecting to see magic tricks.
Yeah.
Great.
Cool. But yeah, that is like literally the least you can expect from a magic show.
Yeah.
And I think magicians have this thing of going, well, I've got good tricks, and in between the tricks I have some jokes. What more could they possibly ask?
Yeah.
And it's thinking, going, well, for a community of people that spend so long going, well, it's really the presentation that's important, not the effect.
Go and watch 90% of the clips on Penn and Teller and it's this is a slightly flawed analogy because these are individual tricks where they are literally wheeling someone out and going, here is a thing with a terribly filmed VT that we put together.
TV does constrain you somewhat, but basically all Penn and Teller clips are sort of
is kind of like, hey, I've got this thing, I've got a little story that I'm going to say about this thing, and then there's the thing, and then I think it's teaching magicians really badly because Penn's job, as he has worked out, because he knows how to play the game, is to effuse about every single person who comes on.
Oh yeah.
So there's always, hey boss, I love that.
Oh,
that's such a great angle, but and you're watching it going, no, it wasn't.
No, it wasn't.
It sucked, mate. You know it sucked. I know it sucked.
It.
It was pretty rubbish.
You can tell when he really likes something.
You know, you know when he really likes something because he doesn't do that. Oh, it was great. It was great. He kind of goes, and he doesn't say very much.
But that's the thing. It's like sort of our idea of presentation is not going, when I was a kid, I saw a magician do this trick.
I was such a pet
so
peeve.
now I'm going to do that trick. I don't care.
Why would you stand on stage? Why would you use the opportunity you have where you have a gathered group of people, be that 2 people at a drinks reception or 50 people in an audience or 1,000 people in the audience, and tell them a story about someone else?
Here's a trick someone else did, which I will now at best replicate.
What is that saying?
What?
Other than, it's just, you just buy these things, to be
Yeah,
honest. I'm
you
just a
just buy this
conduit.
stuff.
Like, honestly, the deck does it. Like, one of these is the wrong way around, you know.
Here's the first trick I ever learned. Surely the first trick you ever learned was rubbish, because you would have been rubbish.
Yeah.
Like, that. I don't want to see the first trick. Imagine, like, someone, a concert pianist comes out and goes, so
Tell you
now
what.
I'm going to play Snug as a Bug in a Rug.
Yeah.
The first song I ever learned on the... No, don't play that.
Play something good.
Play... Oh, I wish I knew more about concert piano.
Moonlight Sonata. Play the Moonlight Sonata.
Play some Rachmaninoff or something.
You know.
Don't play Snug as a Bug in a Rug. And it's not... and also, we con ourselves in industry that this stuff is, like, emotive. And it's like... kind of... And the people could go, it's great because you tell a story with it. But if the story's boring, the audience don't want to hear it.
I'm watching on Disney Plus at the moment, I'm watching In and of Itself, which is the Derek Delgadio highly lauded show.
Yeah.
I'm only 40 minutes in, and I have opinions. And so far, I think it'd be much better if you took out all the magic tricks.
Yeah.
Because I think if you took out all the magic tricks, it's quite a nice storytelling show about his life.
Yeah.
And with the magic tricks, you've got bumps in the road where you go, why is he doing a bloody magic trick? I don't care.
Yeah.
Like, it's... yeah, it's... and the emotive stuff doesn't come from the magic, it comes from the story.
Like...
And I'll be honest, I'm starting to get quite into it. 40 minutes in, it starts getting good. But that's because he's done a magic trick now, and it feels like he's gone, oh, I've done that. That's
got that
out
out
of
of the way.
It's just like,
But that's the thing, isn't it? When we're so obsessed with this thing of being like, well, you need to tell us everything. We need to do some jokes for the thing. And going like, again, with jokes, like the number of magic tricks you see, which are bit of admin, unrelated joke, bit of admin, unrelated joke, trick, which makes the trick end up being 40 minutes long. Whereas, like, why not just do the boring stuff of the trick in a more fun way?
Yeah.
Then you wouldn't have to keep interrupting it to do jokes. You could just do it in a fun way.
there is nothing to be ashamed of with the fact that magic is a bunch of admin that leads up to a single moment.
That's what magic is.
That's what magic is. And I think the people who do best performance-wise at that acknowledge and embrace that.
Yeah.
Because that's what it is. Like, and so rather than trying to hide it, put it out there and go, yeah, this is what it is, let's have fun with it. Or let's be serious about it, or let's be sad about it, or let's be angry about it, you know, or any other of those emotions that hopefully we can access at some point.
Someone asked us a question about, or posted a review or something about parlor tricks, which is available from vanishingitmagic.com.
Yeah.
Saying, all the tricks are just a trick, they're not a routine. And I think there's a really weird thing with magic with the idea of routining, which is like, don't worry if your first trick doesn't go down well, because if it seamlessly flows into 3 more tricks, you'll eventually get them on side. I was like, wouldn't it be better, rather than going, and this trick becomes that trick, becomes that trick, just going, to do a trick that is satisfying enough for an audience that they go, well, that was a good trick. We've done close-up. I mean, we very, very rarely do close-up.
Last time we did close-up was 2.5 years ago, I think.
But we've done close-ups
3
lots
years
for
ago
people
now.
where we do a trick at the start of our close-up set, which we do together, and it's a trick. It's like a 3 cards trick, so it's quite an involved, long trick. And if it gets a sufficiently strong reaction, we sometimes just stop there and walk off.
Yeah, just leave.
Because once you've shown them one really good trick,
What's the point in doing another one?
what's the point of doing another one?
Yeah.
Just walk. You've got a lot of people to entertain. Go and do the same thing for someone else.
And-
And then you only need one good trick.
Yeah. And that lasts 11 minutes, maybe?
Yeah, it's like an 11-minute trick.
And it is
Again,
literally card to pocket, card to wallet, card to cigarette, card to impossible location.
But-
And it's very long, and we make a big fuss out of the admin
Yeah,
in a really over-the-top kind of like, this is the admin section kind of way.
yeah,
And it's just force of personality that makes it happen.
yeah.
So I suppose a question that comes up for me based on what you said earlier, and I'm trying to think in terms of the people that are going to be listening to the podcast right now, those people who are thinking, okay, I'm really keen to do a show, or I've got a show on the horizon. I get that, and I get now that production value is so much more important than the tricks. It's all about like creating like an actual show, as it were. You mentioned that you run everything yourself. How would someone start if they want to put like good?
No,
where is that?
We started 10 years ago doing shows in village halls up and down the country, and you work to your means. So if your means are you have no money, then you accept that you don't have any money, and you do some gigs and earn some money and put some of it away until you can get enough that you can go down to the now defunct Maplins and buy a £99 speaker unit that you can plug a mini jack into. And we used to run with, the first thing we did was make our sound interesting.
Because sound is not, you don't need nothing for sound, obviously. You need speakers, you need a computer.
But you can get a decently powerful speaker for not a lot of money.
And it doesn't take up that much space in your car. Whereas obviously going, and now I'm going to have a set or a backdrop, that takes up more space in your car. But, and like, people often ask this when they say, well, we're on tour, and they'll be like, how do you get a tour like this, like together? And you go, you do this for 10 years.
Yeah.
And they don't want to hear that, because they want, like with all magic, what people want is like an easy secret. And they go, oh, the secret is the cards stick together a bit. Or the secret is you just look and see what the word is.
Yeah.
And they think that the secrets that you kind of get, the kind of secrets you get in magic, which are very stupid and obvious, are the kind of secrets that you get in real life, where the secret is just work hard. Just, it's a long and slow process, and you need to work hard. Like, and honestly, I think that anyone that's telling you, oh, here's our thing that will make your business better or make your magic better, and it's easy, is lying.
And it's not just working hard, it's working smart as well.
Yeah.
In terms of...
Well, thinking about it, analysing it, working out what you need and what works and what
going to watch a bunch of shows that will exist at the scale that you are going to do your show. Go to Fringe Theatre if that's the scale. Go to stuff that's coming to your local village hall. Go to 1,000-seat theatres if that's the scale you think you're going to work at. And watch the shows and go, right, how does this work?
Yeah.
Don't look at everything. Watch everything that's happening and really sort of pull it apart and think about it, because as Rob says, there are no fast track secrets. You can't pay, it's not like, oh, I'm going to pay £1,000 and then I will have all of the secrets to how a magic show works.
With 20 minutes work a week, I can have easy. That doesn't work.
And that's
it's not like that.
It's shows are not a weird sort of pyramid schemey kind of thing. You have to work out how they work and put the work in, and that's not us sort of sitting on it and going, we're not going to tell you.
That's not us going, oh, we can't tell you the secret. There is no secret.
There isn't a secret. There really isn't. So the show we did over the summer...
Throw stuff out. Like, we cut so much crap from our show and built things and gone, let's do this. Nope, never worked. Throw it away. Try stuff.
We started out, our first stage gigs, as it were doing a cabaret show in Oxford that I managed to find through Daily Info called Queen of Clubs Cabaret.
Hey, do you want us to perform?
And we did 10 or 15 minutes, I think, and they paid us 50 quid. And we, as part of that, we knocked someone's red wine over their white dress. And that was, because
we were doing the thing of going, you throw a soft toy into the audience, like Darren does, to pick someone, threw it out, knocked someone's drink over, spilled it over their dress.
Yeah.
Crap, let's not do that again.
You that's how you learn. You try these things and you find out
and you nick stuff. Like it's an excellent point of saying, go and if you want to do a show at your local Fringe thing, or well, I say local, we would do Fringes all over the country, but like you want to do a show in like a little room somewhere, go and see shows on that scale. Go and see small shows, and when you go, God, the sound design in this is really good, or when you go, what a clever use of stuff. Or when you go, oh, the space feels really intimate, or the set looks really good, or the way they're dressed. Like, when you see that stuff, nick it.
Yeah. And also, when you see stuff and you go, God, the set's rubbish. Why go, okay, why is it? Why am I looking at this and thinking this is rubbish?
Yeah.
Or the way they're performing is rubbish. Why do I think that? Don't just sort of sit on the idea that it's rubbish. Go, why is it rubbish? Don't sit on the idea that it's good. Go, why is it good?
Many years ago, we went to see a really good show at the Edinburgh Fringe called Famished, which was a musical about zombies in the Victorian era.
Way back in the days and depths of 2007.
2007. Really good show. Just a silly, fun musical Fringe show. Not magical at all. But there were two of the characters were playing bad guys that were very over-the-top thingy bad guys. And they're all dressed in black. But one of them had brown shoes on.
Really annoyed me.
It
wound me up.
Why do you have brown shoes when you're dressed all in black? And obviously, there was loads of other stuff from the show that was good and that you can learn and you can do stuff with. But one of the things we took away from that is like your costume starts at the top of your head and ends at the bottom of your feet.
To the point where we have done a show where it was in the Georgian Theatre Royal in Richmond, which is Richmond, North Yorkshire, not Richmond, London, as someone who was coming to the show made the mistake of that day.
I see when you're in Richmond and then went, it's
the other
Richmond in Yorkshire.
It's 5 hours from where you think it is, It's a beautiful old sort of theatre where there's boxes literally on the stage. So if you're performing in the front meter of the stage,
You can
you've got-
high-five the audience just
You
like
know,
that.
they're right there. And we used to do sort of chats with the audience before the show starts. We don't do that anymore because it doesn't fit the shows we're doing at the moment. And one of them looked down at my shoes and went, "You haven't polished those recently?" And I went, "You're right, I haven't." And it was just that reminder of, yeah,
that's important.
that
Because
is important. People look, people watch. I'm dreadful for it. I get distracted by things that I look at and don't quite fit.
And again, because your costume says stuff about you, and if your shirt is unironed and your shoes are scuffed,
Tip: wear a waistcoat. That
wear a
means you
waistcoat.
Don't have to iron a
Saves a lot
shirt.
of ironing. But the point is that if people pick up on that stuff and read into it, and we'll get back to the question at some point.
Or maybe we
And
won't.
so the point is, if you're trying to get to the level that you want to get to, firstly, decide what that level is. Decide what your version of success is. A big thing for us in terms of, since this is called the Successful Mentalist, is that I think success is often a misnomer because
Success is self-defined.
you define what success is. You don't get to say, we're going to help you be successful and here's what successful looks like. That's not what success is. Success is what you want it to be. And often it's not even what you want it to be, because what you think success is isn't success. Because when you be like, I'd love to jet around the country or jet around the world, perform for blue chip companies. Yeah, corporate work sucks and flying sucks. So while that's great to brag about on social media, you're going to have a horrible life.
Yeah.
You might have lots of money, but you'll have a horrible life.
Touring is also quite knackering and
touring
sucky.
is quite tiring.
But at least the audiences are usually quite nice. So
But basically, if you want to be successful, you want to do the kind of work we do, or shows or whatever, you set your goal, and you go, okay, next year I want to do a show, and you set a date for that show. You book it in, so you have to do it, and you just start working toward it.
and then whatever that show is, you will have been successful because your goal was to do
the
that
show.
show. If it sucked, fine. If
Fine.
it was brilliant, fine.
Great.
If it was mediocre, fine.
Fine.
And then when you do hit goals, it's also really important to not immediately set the next one,
Yeah.
because that way madness and unhappiness lies, because you are always chasing something.
Yeah.
And that's not to say that you shouldn't be motivated to do stuff,
We're not saying don't book in another show,
but
like,
you need to enjoy and find the happiness in the successes as they happen. Otherwise, what's the point in going for them?
yeah, you see people a lot in the industry, I think, who are so
And not just
hell-bent-
our industry,
not-
but in life in general. It's,
life in
you know,
general, who are
it's
so hell bent on getting to a place, and they don't know what that place is actually going to be like because they've never done it before. But they're so hell bent on being in the West End, on being on TV, and being famous, that they'll have massive successes in their career and be there going, "Sure, I'm doing a show in Vegas." But that guy over there is headlining a show in Vegas. And that guy over there, who started around the same time we did, has his own theatre in Vegas.
so it took me a long time to get over Piff the Magic Dragon's success.
yeah.
Because we first met John in Edinburgh in 2009, where we were both flying on the Royal Mile.
Both in silly costumes.
Both in silly costumes. We did all the same cabaret gigs together constantly. We basically lived together for a month. We didn't live,
We
in, the
didn't
same,
live in the same,
but we
but
were meeting
same-
each other constantly.
constantly.
2009, 2010, and then he did his Penn and Teller spot and
Blew up.
blew up. He didn't fool them. We fooled them, and we were like, "Oh, so this is." And then it was just like nothing.
Not nothing. Not nothing.
Not
The
nothing.
fooling them was good for our career. What
But-
I'm saying is, like,
Our paths diverged, and it took me a couple of years, didn't it? It was
Yeah.
when he was doing that tour with Mumford and Sons. I was really like, "Oh, how the hell?"
and then you heard about 70,000 people booing
Going
him.
again, yeah, and I was like,
And you
"Oh,
go,
okay,
oh, actually doesn't sound that great.
that doesn't sound great."
But and this is, we have all the love and respect for John
Whereas
in the world.
now,
He's
like
incredible.
last time we were out in Vegas a couple of years ago doing a convention, we were out for dinner with John, and it
Yeah.
was just really nice to see him. And he's having a great
he's having a
time.
great time.
He's doing incredibly well. His show's amazing.
It's great. Yeah, it's really great.
I love
Also-
watching him.
Also, I don't want to live in Vegas.
No.
Vegas is awful.
I'd quite like to live in Mumbles in South Wales.
Yeah, like, and so it's that thing of defining success. It would be great to go, I'd love to have the success that Piff has had. Do you want to live in Vegas? And
if
when
you
you're
do-
not in Vegas, spend your time driving around the America in a tour bus? If you do,
Great. Real
Great.
estate's quite cheap, and in 10 years' time, it's
Yeah.
probably going to have dried out, so
Yeah.
it's going to be problems.
but,
you know,
I
just-
really don't want to do that. So when you're thinking about, oh, I wish I had that, And yeah, and that's the thing. And again, this all comes back to this affects the first steps, because it's going, think about what you want and work to get what you want. And again, stop doing that. Here's my dog. And stop doing that thing of going like, oh, one of these days I'm going to do a stage show. Until then, I'm going to do close-up work. And at a close-up gig, probably someone's going to go, hey kid, I'm a theatre producer and I'm going to take you to the big time. That doesn't happen. If you want to do stage work, start making stage work. If you want to do shows, start doing shows. That's how you get to touring theatres or going to Vegas or doing the West End or whatever. You start doing the work that will lead you there. You don't just wait.
I love that. I think that a lot of that makes so much sense in terms of taking ownership, and this is something that we're huge on here at TSM. We're huge on actually taking the reliance on other people, other things out of our careers, and actually bringing it back to where we are, going like, what can we do to get to the next step? What can we actually do to get to the next step? So it's nice to hear it from your perspective as well, that angle of.
And it's super important to self-define what the next step is. Like for us at the moment, the next step is really a step back, not step backwards, but it's a step sideways. The next step for us is getting an old show out and re-rehearsing it,
getting back to where we were,
and
in March 2020.
accepting that we're going to be doing shows for the next month and a half that are not as good as the shows that we were doing in March 2020, because we don't
We're
remember.
rusty.
We're rusty. We don't remember the beats. We don't. We're going to have to find. We're going to do rehearsal for it, but until we're in a room, there will be little bits that we're like, oh yeah, you do that then, don't you? That happens, So defining what that next step is, again, is a really self-actuating. Is that a phrase?
Let's
It is now.
Let's say it is.
It is now.
Yeah.
And like, especially, I think a lot of people in the last year or so have been, and some people we know have been really badly hit by losing a lot of work and losing work at a time when they felt they had a lot of momentum. And one of the things that the pandemic has taught us is that to survive in this industry, you need serious resilience. Your career does not build on a linear scale. I think people think that it's like, I'll start off with 50-seat theatres one year, and then I'll be in 100-seat theatres the next year, and then 200 the next year, and then 400 the next year. That's not how it. Don't sniff that. That's not how it works. The way it works is you start off in small spaces, and then you might start to do bigger spaces, but you'll still be doing the small spaces, and then you might start to do even bigger spaces, but you're still doing small. Like, we will often go and perform in a room that is 400 seats. We don't necessarily sell 400 tickets, but we'll play in one room with 400 seats, and then a room with 100 seats, and then a room with 900 seats, and like, it's very up and down.
And the 400-seat room, we might get 100 people. The 200-seat room or the 100-seat room, we might get 100 people.
Like,
the 900-seat room, we might get 100 people. You don't know. You never know. You never know how it's going to work. You just have to try.
Yeah, and you've just got to stick with it and understand that it's not. There aren't big breaks.
And
there are breaks, but there aren't big breaks.
And you have to work within your means. And we've been very lucky that our means have grown over the years. And we started out by doing a teaching job for a bit, and we took the big old lump of golden hello cash that they gave us and went, great, we'll live off this for a year if we have to.
And we come from a huge bed of white middle class male privilege,
like huge,
like vast. So it was very easy for us to start doing this stuff. You can't discount that.
No, it's very much there.
That's brilliant. I've got one more question from my end at the minute. It's kind of a selfish question, just because it's something I'm curious about right now. But we spoke a lot about having our own ideas and being able to always refine and improve what we're doing. But what would you say is the role of external feedback in actually the improvement process, either from other people or from?
So I would say, and we often say this whenever we do a lecture, we start with this of you've got to check the credentials of the people who are giving you feedback.
You have to choose who you listen to. You have to want to listen to the feedback from those people.
Yeah.
And when you find those people, hold on to them. Don't let them go.
Yeah.
And listen to their feedback all the time.
And obviously, the first part of that we always get is the first piece of feedback you can always listen to is your audience. If your audience responds well to something on a regular basis, it's probably good. If they respond badly to something on a regular basis,
it's probably not great.
It's probably not great. But with that, you have to be careful of. There's a difference between responding to something, or responding to something, and responding to something in the way you want them to respond. Like, as I think we might talk about this in the book, but there's that trick with a phone where you drop a spider on someone's hand and they freak out. They're not freaking out because it's a magic trick. They're freaking out because you've dropped a spider on their hand. And people have to go, it gets massive reactions. I was like, yeah, so does punching someone.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean it's the reaction you want, but people, if you walk up to someone in a gig and lamp them, everyone will freak out.
Yeah. We had an argument, I remember, in a park in Adelaide in 2012. We had an argument with Piff the Magic Dragon about the Omni deck.
Yeah.
Like a proper, lasted for about 15 minutes argument about why it was rubbish and why he said it was
He's
amazing.
a big fan. He was a big fan of it, and we're like, it's rubbish.
Yeah.
It's a rubbish trick. I don't care if people respond to it well. It's a rubbish trick.
Yeah. But in terms of external feedback, we work with a director, a chap called Peter Clifford, who will be known by a lot of people in the industry. Although these days we wonder why we pay him, because basically he turns up and just goes, "Why
are we doing this?
Why are we doing this?
And we go,
why, not why are we? Why is he there?"
No, but as in, why have you made that decision?
And that's all he does is ask us why.
Yeah,
like the
why?
joke is these days
Why?
that Peter's going to say, "We might as well just put a tape recorder on, like in Last
You're
Action
going,
Hero." Why? Why?
But yeah,
Which is a really important question.
Which is a really important question. And again, if someone is giving you advice about stuff, and especially if you are paying for that advice.
Yeah.
Like, if someone comes to us and says, hey, I really want to build my corporate clients, I'd say, why would you ask us? We don't have any corporate clients. We're a theatrical stage act.
Whereas if someone comes to us and says, I'd really like someone to direct something we're doing, we go, all right.
Great, we are theatrical stage workers. That's the kind of thing we do. Like, sort of, if, not as a dig, guys, but if someone were selling a course to improve the success of my career, I'd want some sort of proof that those people were incredibly successful. Because otherwise, well, why would I pay you for that advice? You see what I mean?
In the same way that if someone pays us for directing stuff,
yeah, we like, before you do that, come on, even.
We've had people go, I'll pay you to do directing. So I'm like, all right, let's do a bit first.
We'll do a bit first and see if you like it.
Yeah.
Because, like, similarly, if someone wants advice on stage magic or writing something, we have a very particular style of performing and writing.
Yeah.
And we have done stuff with people before, friends of ours that have asked us for help, who have basically completely ignored it because their style is so different from our style.
We've done a full day with them.
Everything we suggest, they push against.
And
there comes a point and you go, honestly, we can't do any more with you.
There's no point in being here.
Because we have a skill set. And our skill set is theatricality and silliness and wordplay and blah, blah, blah. Whereas if you're going for slick dude in a suit corporate stuff, then none of our ideas are going to feed into that. So you don't want us for that. Like, so if you're working with people, you need to know that they've got the goods, and you need to know that the goods that they're offering are the goods that you want. Like, if someone comes to us with, I don't know, like a character act, and they're like, oh, cool, I'm doing a character act where I'm literally Sherlock. I'm literally the Sherlock Holmes, and I've walked through a time rift, and I'm now in the and my act is like, I'm the Sherlock Holmes. We're like, cool, we can run with that all day. Whereas if someone's got, oh, my thing is I'm sort of a slick mind reader type, and I'm a bit Darren Browning, and it's all NLP and suggestion and nodding my head. I was like, don't care, don't want it. Yeah. We're not the people for you.
We've had instances where, in order to do a bit of television, it was heavily insinuated to us that we had to pay someone £1,000 to come and look at our show and improve it.
Yeah.
And we're like, can you give us a bit more information on that? And they were, it'll improve it by 20%. And we were like,
going, well, what's that mean? What's wrong with it? And they went, there's nothing wrong with it. I was like, then I won't be paying someone to direct my work. Thank you.
It's funny. It's funny. You listen to the people that you want to listen to and that you think will give you good ideas. And listening to them doesn't mean taking everything on board. Listening to them just means that being open to listening to them.
And it's about being critical, which is both in terms of, understanding that they might not everything they say might not be perfect for you, but also being open to accept that you might be wrong about stuff.
Yeah.
Being open to accept that you go, you know what, this thing I thought was good maybe isn't. Or this thing that I thought was funny maybe isn't. Or even if it is funny but it doesn't suit my character, it should still go. Because that's the thing I think people have a hard time with.
It is hard. It's hard. It's hard on stage. It's hard in personal life. It's hard in everything.
It's just going,
you know what?
I was wrong, and importantly, you know what? As I look into this thing, even though it gets good reactions, even though the audience like it as a thing, it doesn't fit the character I'm trying to portray, so I shouldn't do it. Like, Ashley, you're like a psychic mentalist, right?
Well, I'm a weird guy. Put it that way.
So if you were doing a routine about NLP, it would be like, well, hang on, and it might be an amazing routine, but it would be like, well, 15 minutes ago you were reading minds, so surely you're just so either the reading minds bit was nonsense or the NLP bit was nonsense.
It's
And so it's like, well, okay, well, don't do the NLP thing because you're a psychic guy. Or I'm not saying you claim
keep the trick, keep the method,
keep the method,
just
but the
change
presentation, even though it might be great and the person you learned it from might do that exact presentation, it's great. It doesn't fit you, so it needs to fit you. So yeah, do some weird stuff. That's your vibe.
Like the hot tip, as it were, after having talked extensively about how there are no secrets and no hot tips, is that there is currently a bit, and we've talked about this on several podcasts and in our book and everything, because it's the thing that makes us want to punch people in the face. There is a big old trend in mentalism, as started by the Got Talent model and as perpetuated by whoever is designing tricks for everyone who goes on Got Talent / insisting they do things this way. In that mentalism will happen, and then at the end there'll be a big old "and I predicted everything that happened," which is awful.
Which makes no sense.
Because it tells you that it was all going to happen in the first place. Exactly the same in and of itself. There's a bit where early on he does a card trick, and at the end he reveals something that shows you that the entire thing was a setup. And the audience reacts to it, and it infuriates me that he hasn't, it hasn't been.
And that's a perfect example of going, might get a great reaction but doesn't fit the show. So, and if you're, and because there are ways of doing that. If you want to do a big reveal at the end, then the choices that come before that reveal need to feel very random. They need to feel very like, you pick things, you pick that, you mix yourselves up, we end up with this. Look, I predicted it. How could I have predicted it? Not so random that it would have been impossible to predict. If your thing is prediction, you can't have someone rolling a dice.
Yeah, because you can't predict that.
Or rather, if the thing is prediction by psychological influence.
If it's not future forecast.
Yeah. If you're clairvoyant, you can very much say, you roll a dice, I'll tell you what the answer's going to be. But if you are a psychological, I'm going to suggest things to you, and the second they roll a dice, blown out of the water.
Done.
But if you spend 10 minutes with someone doing readings and checking their pulse and making them say the alphabet over and over again, and so, are you thinking of the word badger? And at the end, you've got a picture of a badger, and be like, see, I knew you'd pick the word badger. Well, then all the pulse reading saying stuff didn't mean anything. And even if the audience go, wow, how do you know it was badger? You've completely undercut any narrative that you were creating and any drama you've created. Because if someone were describing that back to someone or thinking about it, or came to see the show again, because people come to see shows more than once, especially if they're really good. At the point when you're going, okay, think of A, B, C, B, did it start with B? You're there going, well, it's badger. I know it's the word badger. And I know he's going to know it later. So at that point, and the way, and I think some people's answer to that is just going, no one thinks about that. Which is a surefire method of making mediocre work.
Because might not actively think about it, but there's definitely an undercurrent of, it stops it being amazing. It stops it being great. It stops it being fantastic. It makes it, great, okay, fine, next.
And there is a
magic is not just a series of wow moments, or it is, but I've in the last sort of 9 months I've gotten into flying trapeze in a big way as a hobby, and recently I've started watching clips of people doing flying trapeze performances, and they are universally dull. Because they have been the same for the last, as far as I can tell, 80 years. Flying trapeze is worse than magic for doing the same thing. They have spangly costumes, they stand on the rig, they do these arms, they throw the bar out because, and I've read a few books on it, they say that's how you keep the audience interested, is you throw the bar out, they do some tricks and then they come down. It's an acrobatic performance skill, so it's supposed to be beautiful to look at. But beyond that, it's got nothing, which is exactly the same as magic going, and here's this impossible thing, ta-da, and beyond that, it's got nothing.
Well, and it's like with jugglers as well, and I'm big into juggling. And if you see one street performer do a juggling set, you've pretty much seen them all. And every now and then, I remember being in Cambridge, I think, years and years ago with an old girlfriend, and stopping, and there was a juggler there doing a street set to like 8 people, and it was really good, really like modern, fun stuff with jokes and bits and all the standard street performance stuff. But genuinely someone who really knows their stuff, really knows what everyone else is doing, and actively wasn't doing it.
And taken the skills that they had and used it as a foundation.
Yeah.
And it's so, like, you know, Gandini Juggling is a famous juggling troupe that do shows that involve
Real art house juggling.
And that's the other end of it. That's the kind of the real art house end.
Yeah.
But there's a happy medium somewhere.
Yeah.
You know, there's performance is about telling a story and
I think it's about
engendering feelings in people and connecting.
It's also about being rigorous and going and not saying those things like no one will notice that, and not saying that things of like, oh, no one will care, or not saying things like, oh, as long as they react well at the end. It's like or doing magic tricks that people might have seen before. Say you're doing the invisible deck, not a bad trick, great trick, but everyone does it.
We used to run, I mean, years ago now, we ran a monthly night in Oxford where we'd get two guest
magicians,
and we had to, after 6 months, we had to start telling people, please don't do the invisible deck. Our audience have seen it 6 times.
They've seen it 6 times. Everyone does it, and we get a lot of repeat audience. So if you do it, they've seen it.
Yeah, so it's up to you whether you do it or not. But as a warning, they know what's coming.
And because a lot of people, I think, go, most people have never seen magic, so it doesn't matter what I do. Whereas, wouldn't it be better to go, most people have never seen magic,
so
which means some people have seen magic, and if I do something that's good for them, it's also good for the most, because most people have never seen anything. But being good for the some is better, because then you're good for everyone, rather than going, hey, if 80% of people like this and 20% of people think it's bad or think they've seen it before, that's 80%. I was like, yeah, but if you aim for those 20%, you actually get 100%. If that makes sense.
That's perfect. And we've got a question in from Ali just in the comments, but very quickly, what you said there reminded me of a conversation I had with the wonderful Luke Jamay up in Newcastle on that whole thing about, I'll say this on the podcast because it's quite funny, and we was chatting about confabulations at the end of a mentalism routine where, ta-da, everything's predicted. And he said it and I was like, oh my God, Luke, that makes so much sense. It's so obvious. Why didn't I think of that? And then I looked at my show and then I went, shit. I had to change everything, and it just makes so much sense. But it is looking at your material in that kind of like deeper way and actually like looking into, I guess, the performance behind it. But I just want to say everything that you guys have covered today has been like really wonderful, really actually useful for people. And I know there's so many people in our world that want to get into theatre work and are currently doing work in the theatre, both in magic and outside of magic, so it's going to be so useful for them. But very quickly to fire you Ali's questions, and it's kind of split up into 3. We've got like 2 quick fire questions and then a little bit on our material. His first one, question A, as he's written, MediaStar Pro for lights as well as music, is that what you use?
I don't know what that is. At the moment, for music, we use QLab. We used to use a program called ShowQ System. It used to be called SoundQ System, then they changed their name to ShowQ System. We're currently looking into using an Eon Desk emulator on a MacBook, because most theatres run Eon Desks or similar. If you've got a theatre with a Jester, run a Mile, because they're just awful.
Yeah, bad desks.
So not heard of it, but if it works, great.
Yeah, sure, if it works.
You know, there's plenty of programs out there, and there's more and more all the time.
Yeah, we're at this point in our career, all the lighting stuff we've ever done is by writing lighting plots and giving them to techs in the space, and just basically going like, do as good as you can to match that lighting plot.
And then we'll have a look at it and tweak. You know,
yeah.
That's the.
So we are only just now getting into it, and we have yet to decide on how we're going to control things. But our sound is, and any sound and video production we do is run through QLab.
We were literally talking about the lighting side of things 20 minutes before we came on this podcast. So.
Would you look at that? Well-timed question. Here's other one. Just curious about projectors for your show. Is it a screen or is it all portable?
For the science show, we have a built-in projection screen, which is some rear projection material stapled over a frame, which then slots into the set. It's pretty big. I mean,
the set is 7 foot high and is like 3 walls of a room.
Yeah, it takes up an entire van. It's 8 meters wide, 4 meters sort of deep, as it were, and we use we've just
literally here.
It's a short throw
BenQ projector.
You know, it was a 500 quid projector. It's a decent lumens.
Lumi Expert.
There you go. We did a bit of research. We found one that wasn't horrendously expensive, but also wasn't cheap, because you buy cheap, it breaks. You buy really expensive, you don't know if you're going to use it enough.
Yeah, we've fallen in traps in the past of going, let's buy the best thing, and then going, we never use anything but the basic functionality of this thing.
And you also fall into traps where you go, let's buy the cheapest thing, and then within 3 bits of wood, your saw doesn't work anymore, and so you have to go and buy a new saw.
Yeah, okay,
Don't-
let's find
you-
out the right. But partly
you
it's
remind
just
me of,
buy what you can afford.
Yeah.
You remind me of 2 weeks before lockdown when I bought my my expensive £1,000 Mindbuster pad, and then we went into lockdown. I went, that's redundant. Yes.
We took delivery of 50 giant cardboard boxes.
Made to measure,
Made
specifically.
to measure, custom giant cardboard boxes for the box stab.
3 weeks after lockdown ended, because I'd ordered them 2 weeks before it began.
And yeah, they took a long time to make.
And
so,
yeah, that was a sad day.
yeah.
Oh, there. At least it's not me. And finally, the last question on here before we wrap up. After seeing your time traveler routine and seeing your code work and seeing your DVD, are you mentalists or magicians? And does this affect your material choices?
Doesn't matter.
There is literally no difference.
To us, there's no difference. We are Morgan and West. We do impossible things with a very silly edge.
Yeah.
We don't. We never go in for the direct mind reading line. I don't think we've ever done anything that's direct mind reading.
Not straight up telepathy.
Yeah.
Maybe in the old days.
Maybe in the old days, but I mean, these days what we do is family shows, and so there's one piece of mentalism in the entire show, mentalism, and that's for the adults.
Just for the
Kids
adults.
doesn't work for kids. Kids don't get it.
But yeah, like magicians spend far too long worrying about labels. Who cares?
Make your own
The
label.
audience don't.
Buy one of them little clicky click things and make your own label, and then you know.
But like in the same way that people are like, oh, are you meant to say mission? No one cares. And or like the number of arguments about whether I use the word trick or use the word effect. No one cares. Stop. And again, magicians love to argue about really petty stuff because they feel like they're working.
Once you've got the big thing sorted out, then
argue about the petty stuff.
Because some people do care.
Yeah.
But it's more important to care about the general stuff before
Yeah.
you start sort of really laser focusing on little things like that, we think.
Our thing is Morgan and West is a very particular style and a particular act, and a style I think that the magic community often misjudge. In the magic community, I think we're kind of like, oh, very Victorian and somber and blah, and we're not. We're a very silly comedic family act. But our audiences, the audiences actually come to our shows, know that, and they know the kind of thing you're getting when you come to the Morgan and West show.
But
So when it
we're
comes to-
known very differently in the magic community to how we're known by the public.
Yeah. No one in the public thinks those guys that do code work. And I think that for us, material selection just comes down to, does it feel like a Morgan and West bit? We in our Christmas show, which we trot out only really once a year, or for one period a year.
Yeah, one period. Like, you know, a number of times.
A
in
number
that
of
period.
a number of shows, but only for a couple of weeks a year. We
In
recently
May.
put in, for a while we've had a snowstorm in it, but it never felt right.
No, it was all. It always.
We had some bits leading up to it that felt Morgan and Westy, and then we get the actual snowstorm bit, and it didn't
It's never quite worked.
feel right for some reason. And then the last run of doing it, we hit upon the idea of, rather than fanning, because we do it with a fan, like a
We
hand fan.
did it with a.
We did it with an electric fan for ages, and then it broke, and then we went, why not just use a hand fan?
And also, they're so loud.
They're so loud.
Oh my
the
god, they're
electric
so
fans.
loud.
But we did it with a hand fan for a bit, and we're doing the fanning up thing and going, na, 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 na. And it was like, I feel like once this starts, everyone's like, cool, snow, and then there's nothing there, and not very us. Until we hit upon the idea of, wouldn't it be funny to get a massive, you know, those fans that go on the wall? It's like a giant fan. And we got that, and we're like, isn't it funny to do that? And rather than fanning it up, I'm holding the load, and Reese is fanning it straight into my face. So then you still get the magical, like, where's all
With all the snow coming,
where's
and
all
there's
the
a
snow
lot.
coming from?
There is
And
a
there's
lot.
We pack our loads.
Yeah.
But now it's not just where's all the snow coming from. As that reveal is happening, I get to react to Reese.
And I get to be really
Yes.
enthusiastic with this. Come
And I get to
on,
go,
you know.
no, stop it. Like, and it found that.
And it got really. It
very
worked. All of a sudden, it was
very
like, oh yeah, and it worked not because that's a brilliant way to do that trick. It worked because that's a way that
fits
that
Morgan
fits.
West.
It's the natural evolution of. It's not odd. It's not a stop. It's not a speed bump. It is a natural ramping up of how we do stuff, and
Yeah.
an audience connects with that.
And yeah, and it is that trick fit around the relationship that we have on stage.
That's perfect. And I think what a wonderful way to wrap up the episode today. And to finish, is there anything that you'd like to say to the audience at large? An audience in about just over 110 countries now. So is there anything that you want to mention to anyone listening right now?
I don't have enough languages for that. I can do French, Welsh, and German, and that's about it, really.
Selectively missing off English from that list.
Well, we've been doing English, haven't we?
It's clear
What is English? What is English other than a mishmash of everything else? Do stuff because you want to do it, because you enjoy it, and make decisions. Everything you do should be based on a decision. What that decision is up to you, but don't do stuff just because you're doing it.
Yeah.
That way, you just don't get anything.
And pick up Parlor Tricks of Vanishing Ink. Great book.
Absolutely.
Great book.
It's in its third printing, so if you want to keep buying it, that's great. But I'd be surprised if it sells any more copies. It feels like it's done.
Everyone's got it now.
I'll bet all these. I'll just film a shelf up with it.
There are definitely more signed than unsigned copies in existence now. But yes, we're very glad of the reaction that's had, and there might be another book at some point in the next couple of years, but maybe.
We got stuff on.
Wonderful. Looking forward to it. Well, chaps, thank you very much for coming on the Successful Mentalist podcast. You have a wonderful day, and thanks for being here.
Welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.